In 2005, a Category 5 hurricane hit Louisiana in the city of New Orleans like never before. The damage caused by this storm left everlasting impact on the state and its people. Nowadays, the city flourishes as everywhere you look, you see friendly people going about their day. But underneath it all, there is still a large threat to their home. And that's what brings us here, to study just exactly what people can do about rising water levels. Today, you'll hear and see the raw footage obtained in our 5-day trip of those who have been impacted and shared their own personal experiences and stories.
We're just saying we gotta get it done, or we won't be around.
Wheaton Impact Travel, with those who helped us along the way, presents to you an original film. Rising Waters, a New Orleans documentary.
My name is Dinah Maygarden, and I work at the University of New Orleans as a research associate, and so I work in the Pontchartrain Institute for Environmental Sciences, and I work on different projects related to coastal Louisiana. And what I'm focusing a lot on right now is getting teachers and students comfortable with getting out into the environment. So I know you all were interested in research and some specific things, so I thought you could start out by asking questions, but we'll go and I have, things set up so we can look at images and Google Earth and stuff in the other room. Basically, get grant money to do projects and do those projects. So whatever that happens to be, and recently it's been a lot of educational projects more than science research, but I stay in touch with the researchers. Right? So this marsh is kind of a good example of a place that was impacted by the energy. So when you think about a hurricane and what it does, it has a huge amount of energy, both wind and the water that flows in. It has, it doesn't just casually rise up and go back down again. It has huge amounts of energy. So the water energy and the wind energy are what does the most amount of damage and causes like big spikes in land loss. And there's the subsidence and sea level rise too going on in the background. And so these big weather events like big hurricanes can really have an impact. So I was hoping we might be able to canoe out to this little spot out here. We'll see if we get out there or not that far. So I've just passed out the long paddles, and I think we have another long paddle. So if you're steering, it's a lot easier if you have a longer paddle, which is why I passed those out to the people who said they were steering. This is a short paddle, but it
still helps.
As the last of the group got their paddles, it was time for us to launch out onto Lake Pontchartrain, a historic marsh home to many ecosystems recently put under stress due to the drastic conditions of climate change.
This is what we call a brackish marsh, which is basically a marsh that has some salt content in the soil, and we'll be able to measure the amount of salt in the water, but the plants have to be adapted to living, being in a salty environment. So all the plants around us are the kinds of plants that can stand fluctuations in salinity. It doesn't always stay the same, depending on the conditions.
Hold on, that's good. Hold on.
Hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. Are you sure you want to take
shoes.
There's 3 of us.
Just commentate. So, come on.
Cast off.
Oh, actually,
Drew, I'm sorry if I get any water on you from my oar.
that's fine, man.
After a near 30-minute voyage on the marsh of stopping for duck hunters,
It's kind of cool.
So they're going duck hunters.
seeing eradicated houses,
So what we're looking at here along the coast is all the remnants of storm surges that have been basically eradicating houses along the shoreline.
If you can
So
imagine,
you can kind of see what's left behind it.
Katrina storm
and getting
surge
stuck
was
in the
the
mud.
first.
I'm going. Come on, Dave.
The group arrived at the salinity testing area, in which members took turns looking through refractometers.
So we can
She was kind of running.
So these are refractometers, and we're basically getting our salinity from the refraction of light through the. We're putting a solution on the glass. So I put a blob of water basically on this glass, and I close the cover. So then we're looking through the eyepiece, and the refraction of light through that solution is what gives us our reading. So, and it was hitting the 10 mark approximately, and so that's 10 parts per thousand, and that's considered brackish water. So if you divide your different levels of salinity into fresh, brackish, and saline, we're in the brackish zone. So that influences all the things that live around here.
We came out here to test the salinity of the water right along the marsh to see how resistant the roots of these plants along the water are to things like rising sea levels and storm surge. All right, feel like something like that.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So, since the water level is particularly low today, we got to see much more about the mud, and as Tim mentioned, how different soil has different resistance to erosion. And we also got to see some beautiful nature. We got the sunset here. Saw some birds feeding, some flying by, some fish. Just all around beautiful evening here in Louisiana.
You want to tell me about the experience?
That was actually so relaxing and so informative and beautiful, serene.
What did you learn?
I learned that in the spring that the water is very freshwatery because of all the rain you get in the spring, and then later in the summer it becomes a lot more, what is it called, salinity? Higher salinity because of all the thunderstorms they get here.
So when there's different salinities in the water, some of the marshes are different plants that take over and like different salt contents. So oftentimes ones that like saltier environments end up holding the mud together better and make the land stronger, and so it erodes less fast.
What's your name?
But I think the thing that inspires me most is when I see students really enjoying going out in the marsh and just having fun. And I think that goes back to like where I came from as a young person and how I loved being out in nature, and no matter where in the world I was, because I grew up in the UK actually, and ended up in New Orleans. I think wherever I had ended up, I would have wanted to share my love for nature and to do things that inspired people to care for the environment and learn more about it, like be more aware of their environment. And so I just, it's just part of my DNA, I guess.
The next step in our plan was to hear from people in the streets of the French Quarter, a district home to some of the most vibrant people in New Orleans. We would like to know just what people have to say about this ongoing issue.
We are in the French Quarter, and we are trying to get immersed into the New Orleans culture, as well as speak to locals about climate change, as well as our topic.
Hello, my name is Catherine Wilson, and I was born and raised in the heart of New Orleans, which is now called the Lower Garden District. We have the Upper Garden District and the Lower Garden District, which is blue collar.
I'm Bob with Haunted History.
So how long have you lived here?
I've been here over 40 years. I'm originally from Chicago.
My name is Donald Coyote Hagan. 47. I'll be 48 in February 11th.
You want to talk a little bit about your history in the area?
I was born in Louisiana my whole life. I mean, grew up out here between Lamont, Louisiana and New Orleans since I was about 10 years old.
That's great to know, Catherine. All right. So how has been your background here in New Orleans? Have you always been an artist?
No. I put my husband through college, and then, well, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was bored. I was climbing the walls. I didn't have a car. So I started taking art classes at night for fun, where we would drink wine and cut up. Then I stopped drinking wine, and I stopped cutting up, and that's 40 years ago, and I haven't stopped since.
So what has your experience been with climate change? Have you noticed any activism around where you live?
No activism really. What I've noticed is a tour guide in the summer, we had at least 17 straight days of heat index here in New Orleans of over 110. Wow. That is debilitating. That never happened before. So we had a heat index last summer, September 1st, of 120 degrees. It's an all-time high heat index. So it's definitely getting hotter.
Wet, cold, windy. Waters came up pretty quick in some parts when the levee blew out.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got pretty nasty.
That's awesome. All right, so now we're gonna get more to the gist of it. Have you heard and do you believe in climate change?
No.
Yeah. And what about sea level rise? Have you had any experience, like as a tour guide, going out there and seeing like a change in the position?
Well, you just walk through New Orleans, it floods all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And actually, we were in a drought until recently. So that no sea level rising that way.
Have you had any like more recent experiences with any sort of flooding in the area, or just water kind of displacing where you're at?
No, actually, it's been low this year. Most of the time, about where y'all are sitting be where the water would be at about this time of year. But right now, it's kind of low.
And I'll tell you why. You want me to tell you why? Because if you study climate people, what is a climate specialist called? I can't remember. Well, anyway, he will tell you every 5,000 years the earth cools, the earth heats. The earth cools, the earth heats. That's all it's doing right now.
Have you noticed any changes since Hurricane Katrina or any of the most previous storms?
Well, what I've noticed is the people, they're resilient. You can live here like nowhere else. That's why people live here. So the people are resilient. I was surprised how many people came back. We had 500,000 in the city proper before Katrina. We now have 390,000. But that's 390,000 more than I thought we'd have.
So is this kind of your spot? Is this where you're usually at?
I've been resident of the Steps for 35 years.
Resident of the Steps, interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at right now. That's for sure.
Have you noticed a sea level rise, and has that impacted you or your whereabouts?
I live between, New Orleans is a tiny strip of land between Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River. It rises, it sinks. It rises, it sinks, and it will continue to do that. And it's no worse than it's ever been. Actually, it's a lot better because we have some of the best levees in the country.
The Gulf is eating away at the soil here. So a lot of soil erosion. We're losing areas every year, and they got to do something because. Maybe I won't be around to see it, but they're saying in 50 years New Orleans will be underwater. So that's from climate change. So it's coming. It's about, something like 5 feet a year, not a whole lot, but being 85 miles upriver from the mouth of the Mississippi, it's coming at 5 miles a year, you see.
You You think levees have improved since Katrina?
They've been doing a pretty good job. I mean, I wasn't here for the last couple of hurricanes. I've been traveling about the U.S. I'm a traveling kid, dirty kid. Believe it or not, you probably hear where I travel on right behind you right about now. That'd be a freight train.
Do you think Katrina was like a wake-up call for New Orleans to create these, innovative levees and, help combat it?
Yes, but I'll tell you why. The French Quarter did not flood because the Mississippi River comes down and silt builds up. So our founding fathers built a city on the highest level land here. And unfortunately, they drained the swamp in different sections. They left a bowl and didn't fill it in. So when the water got in, it couldn't get out.
What makes you pick a spot like this, right by the coast, right by the water?
Water soothing. To listen to it sound.
That is all it's doing. But I do believe in the importance of stopping to use fossil fuels because I want natural gas to be here when my grandkids grow up and my great-grandkids grow up. And I do believe the importance of clean air. We do need to stop fossil fuel. We need to start harnessing the sun.
Roger. That's valid.
I kind of want to know a little bit about any concerns, if you ever have any concerns in the back of your mind about, how permanent the place you are is in relative to, the shoreline, being here at this spot. I know you said the water is low this time of year, but do you, have concerns about having to move your location?
Well, I'm gonna have to move my location because if I'm here when that water tide comes in, it's not gonna be a pretty sight.
That's fair. What do you about think, like, in the future? Do you think that'll have to be a relocation type of thing?
Well, around here, it's relocate or end up underwater, one of the two. But if you end up under the water, it won't be pretty when Mother Nature comes through.
Hearing what people in the area think about rising sea levels is something we found to be extremely interesting and leaves the question, what kinds of things can be done to mitigate that?
Okay. What is your name and what do you do?
Susanna Burley. I'm the founder and executive director of Sustaining Our Urban Landscape, Soul.
But I just wanted to say thank you to you all. And when they were working in the neighborhood, whenever I would see someone, I'd stop and tell them how grateful we were and are for the trees, because I guess we don't know how important having that shade is. Don't understand that it actually helps us to not be so hot. So I appreciate all the hard work that you all have done. Gentilly Woods has been established since 1951. And at that time, it was an all-white neighborhood. Now, we're seeing diversity. We're seeing different people move in. Now it was mostly black. Now it's Latinos, it's white, it's black. It's a majority. It's a melting pot.
Hi guys. Right now we are with Soul and we are replanting trees in a neighborhood that was destroyed by Katrina.
Soul is known for planting thousands upon thousands of trees in various neighborhoods of New Orleans in hopes that the impact on a smaller level can eventually help out in a huge way. Our group was tasked with planting multiple along with other volunteers in the area.
The soil is a little rocky, but Tim broke it up with his pickaxe, so we're gonna work until we can put that tree in. So the tree we're planting is native to this region, and it's supposed to absorb all the water from the floods and everything. So it's supposed to be very good when it rains a lot.
Our pile of dirt has a lot of sand in it, so and that comes from the bottom of our hole. So we're gonna put water polymers at the bottom, which is basically like special Orbeez. Because sand absorbs water so quick, we want to be able to retain some water for the tree's roots. So we're going to do that when we finish our hole. grass that was on the topsoil that we dug up on the bottom because it helps hold up the tree and stops any weeds from getting in the tree roots.
I'm sorry, babe.
But this is a lot of fun, and we can't wait to plant our tree. Our tree name is Lucy. Meet Lucy.
Just as things were going smoothly, a resident of the neighborhood stopped to talk to us.
Okay, go ahead.
We're not in charge, so you would have to find the people who have a green shirt like that.
Oh,
one.
like that.
She's in
The
charge.
lady over there, she could, yeah. She could answer that question.
Thank you.
What we learned, not everybody wants a tree.
Thanks to the help of Soul today, we've been able to plant over 100 trees in the New Orleans community, and we've had a very good and successful afternoon.
Okay, my name is Melody Arcia, and I am the communications coordinator at Soul.
Hi, my name's Emma. I'm Ellie. I'm a little bit newer. I've been volunteering since like maybe 2022, and I just became the team leader like a little less than a year ago. I started as a volunteer like 2021, so not that much earlier, and then I've been team leading for about a year now.
So my background is in social work, and so you would think tree planting organizations, social work don't mix, but actually they really do, because we're improving communities where people live, and so I think that's what I've got the most out of this work is helping people in a way that it may not be obvious at first glance, but really impacts quality of life because we're shading streets, we're making sure people are safe in the summer, that the utility bills are lower, that there's less flooding on the street, so it really is a public service.
This is our 8th planting season. So in that time period, we've planted almost 9,000 trees. We're planting entire neighborhoods now at a time, including this neighborhood here today. So you could show an image of our map on our website and zoom into this neighborhood. But what we're doing right now is we work with neighborhoods for several years, and we offer trees to every single block.
So one of these trees will drink like a couple hundred gallons of water a day, and so they really help with flooding as well. This neighborhood was really impacted by Hurricane Katrina, and so having all of these trees here will help with reduced flooding in the case of another hurricane or heavy rain again.
Okay, so New Orleans overall is a great place to plant trees because trees are the most economical and effective way to affect climate change when it comes to flooding and the heat island effect. So this is the perfect place because the Gulf Coast is like the front line of climate change, I mean here in the U.S. So.
For me, definitely the highlight is when you finish planting all your trees and you come back to base camp and you get to see everybody sitting around and eating pizza and kind of like enjoying knowing that they made a difference in the community and like seeing the physical, like when I drive back out I see like all the trees that people planted during the day and like seeing that is really like impactful. That's cool driving in the morning too, seeing like all the trees that you've done in previous plantings because we've been in this neighborhood for like 2 years now. But today y'all were an awesome group and it was really cool to see y'all pick up on like how the plantings work and like asking all the right questions and like actually caring about how the trees are going in the ground and making sure they're going to survive. So
my favorite part about this is I have a lot of favorite parts, but I love the people. I feel like we've really created a community with the volunteers here. Y'all are from out of town, but a lot of these people have been coming for years, some of them for 8 years. And we've seen a lot of friendships develop, and so the people is a big important part, but also we're making really tangible environmental change. You know, trees, when we plant them, they're small, but as they grow, their impact grows. So our state tree, the bald cypress, when it's mature, it will drink 880 gallons of stormwater per day. So when we plant an entire neighborhood with water-loving trees, we're mitigating millions of gallons of stormwater.
After a long day of planting trees, the last step in our process was to hear from some organizations that have a high influence in the restoration process, to see what the plans are for now and the future state of New Orleans.
government decided to levee both sides of the Mississippi River. So, you know, there were scientists at that point that said, hey, you know, if you levee that, remember that you're not going to get those annual floodwaters that are going to go on the plains on both sides. And while it would be a great benefit to the United States as a country for all that farmland not to get flooded every year and ruin the crops, there may be some side impacts that are going to affect those lands by them not getting those spring floods every year and getting the sediment from the Mississippi River that it would deposit every year. So when that happens and you have a levee going across the southern coast, you have to put floodgates wherever you ran across a canal that comes in. And you know, basically, we're building a system that's going to have 23 different operating floodgates. Now, that's very costly to build. These floodgates are just tremendous. Some of them can be $300 to $400 million a piece because they may be in the Intracoastal Waterway, which is a federal waterway that runs from Florida all the way to Texas. So we certainly didn't want another dredge canal going down to the Gulf of Mexico that could bring storm surge up right against our levee, right? Because that'd put our levee at more risk. So, and besides, if you dredge a canal in the wetlands, the Corps of Engineers, as they should, says, well, you're messing up the wetlands by dredging that canal, and you have to mitigate.
In terms of your environmental protections, we know a lot more today than we did 100 years ago. So your regulations today are a lot more pro-environment, less harm. You have to go through extensive EISs for this project, and an EIS is an environmental statement, okay, an environmental impact statement, okay, which basically means it's coming in and analyzing every microorganism all the way up for any potential impacts.
When you think about, you know, a portion of our country was underwater during another age, right? And so if we're on a cyclical thing as the Earth, you know, we could have that again, right? So I want my community to last as long as it can. Eventually, it may be overcome, right? If water rises 30 feet here, as you know, why the Arctic melts. Who knows, you know? In our community, we're spending a lot because it's we're just saying we gotta get it done, you know, or we won't be around.
It's easy to blame oil and gas. Are they a contributing factor? Absolutely. But the biggest mistake we made was leveeing that river and not leaving holes in it like my late father knew we should. Ouch. Okay? Oil and gas? Absolutely. They drilled canals. But that was in the 30s. You want to know what they're doing today? They're not digging canals 100 feet wide. They're digging them 6 feet wide. And what y'all don't hear on the media is they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars helping fund restoration. And this is the analogy that I gave that made Chris start to think. If you look at your arteries, your veins, you have what that keep your blood flowing? You have walls of your arteries, right? Look at the Mississippi River and the levees. We took the river and we built levees on either side. And in doing so, what did we do to the marsh? We deprived the marsh of its life-giving blood, known as sediment. Got what I'm just saying? Did y'all just make that analogy in your mind? We deprived the marsh of its life-giving sediment. I believe that each of us have a duty and an obligation to wherever you live in the world to leave it a better place for your generation, okay? But these stories need to be told.
She was a child. She can hardly believe her eyes.
That's not one of the tomb right there. That's it. My God. Could be my little brother.
Could be my grandma, my grandpa. That's what I take hard.
It's hard to feel as though you can make a change towards a big issue, but the truth is, you can set your mind towards anything if you care enough about it. This trip taught our group a ton of new perspectives from others, as well as learning about the past, the current, and the future plan in New Orleans. So we'll leave it up to you to think about these last questions. How long does New Orleans have until it goes under? And how might that impact you?